Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to a new episode on refining character. This is the fourth episode where we look to take benefits from the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today I'm joined by Sheikh Asim Khan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. So what do we have in store for us today on this episode?
Today I thought we'd talk about the topic of self-restraint and discipline. One of my teachers, he told me that from the successful qualities of a believer or a successful person in general is the ability to have discipline and self-restraint. So it's part of your character, but it could end up making you a millionaire. It could end up taking you to Jannah. It could end up making you the best husband, the father in this world. So I think we should talk about that today.
Okay, amazing stuff. Jazakallah khair. So just on that, you mentioned anger, and we know the famous hadith which says the strongest from amongst you isn't the one who's the best fighter, but rather the one who can control themselves in a moment of anger. So why is it so difficult for us to control our anger?
I think that some people are more disposed, in their personality to losing their cool and becoming angry. Like there was that man who came to the Prophet and he said, give me a piece of advice. And the Prophet just said two words, La taghdab, don't become angry. And then the man became angry because it was like such a small piece of advice. He was thinking of something grand. And so the Prophet just repeated, La taghdab, don't become angry, don't become angry. And he just kept on repeating that. So for that person, the Prophet chose the best advice, which was, look, I can tell that you're a man who struggles to control their anger. And the scholars, they say, that can have a number of meanings, don't become angry. One of them is that don't act on your anger, because maybe it's not possible for you to not be angry. Like, you see someone cuts you up on the road, or someone says something nasty to you, you just lose your cool. But you can decide on how you respond. So the Prophet here was saying, don't respond in a way that's haram, basically. Don't do something reckless, don't do something that's gonna, you're gonna regret. Or even say something you're going to regret. And most people do end up doing that. They end up lashing out, saying things which they regret, and those things are often damaging, and sometimes those things are permanently damaging, right? So just that moment, if you had self-restraint, you could have saved yourself a lot of harm later on. Another interpretation of don't become angry is suppress the anger. So when you feel it flaring up inside of you, you need to be able to coach yourself to dumb down on the anger. So for example, somebody may think this is impossible, but it is possible. Like if we said you're online and you posted maybe a selfie of yourself, okay, as many people do, and you wrote some positive message, and then somebody writes a nasty comment like, man, your ears look so big. You're like, what? My ears? How dare you? And then, some people are started to like that comment, maybe someone's commenting on that comment, and now you're getting really vexed, and you're like, I want to teach this person a lesson. So in that moment, it's possible to say, hang on a minute, maybe I'm just overreacting. Actually, you know what, if I did say something, this could become even worse. Actually, you know what would the Prophet ﷺ have done in this situation? Would he have reacted in the way that I'm considering? So you're coaching yourself to suppress the anger. And that's one of the meanings of the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, which is don't become angry. A third interpretation is that don't put yourself in a situation that you know you're going to get angry, right? So for example, if you go to that, putting a selfie up and then the comments and all the rest of it, if you know that you're creating a situation where somebody could comment in a way that you're going to react badly to, then don't do that in the first place. Maybe even don't be online, don't be on social media, or at least don't put up those posts that you can't handle people saying negative stuff about, right? Another way is when you're around certain people. Like sometimes it's difficult with family, of course you can't choose your family, but sometimes your friends or your colleagues, there's a person who will say the exact thing that will push your buttons and get under your skin. So what you do in that situation is either you avoid that person, or if they're about to say something, maybe they're going to talk about your favorite football team or something, and it's going to get under your skin. You say, you know what, I think we should talk about something else. So you remove yourself from that situation in which you know you're going to lose your temper and then do something which you're going to regret. So it's very profound. You know, the hadith of the Prophet, la taghdab, don't become angry, because it can be understood in so many ways.
Wow, okay. So now, for example, also we have you mentioned it, you touched on it briefly about online, for example. And so what happens, say, for example, if you're being trolled, or like, you know, you can suppress it once, but then they keep going again and again, and it just sort of slowly builds. Like, what do you do in that situation?
It's difficult because it's very annoying, and also publicly it's kind of, you know, you're taking a hit, because online there's how many hundreds of thousands, millions of people could potentially see that, right? But again, it's important to reflect over what the Prophet would have done. So there is an instance where we know that in the early days, you know, the Prophet in Mecca, he was a minority, and the Quraysh, they really tried to make his life difficult. So there's one instance where the Prophet is making tawaf around the Kaaba. And these are the early days, so he can only do this by himself. None of his Muslim followers, companions can actually support him and go up there. In fact, because of his position, he's literally the only person who can openly do tawaf as a Muslim. So as he's doing that, Abu Jahl and some of his friends and comrades are sitting there, and they're just insulting him, literally. Like, he's, you know, making tawaf is a very spiritual thing. You know, think about Allah, you know, think about positive things. And there's a group of people just taunting you. So he does tawaf, one circuit, and he listens to all that abuse. And as he's walking past them, he looks at them to show that I'm here and I know what you're saying, but I'm not going to respond. And he goes around. And the second circuit, they do the same thing. They taunt him, they say some really obnoxious things, and again he walks past them. The third circuit, they not only taunt him, but then they say bad things about Allah and about Islam. At that point, the Prophet stopped, turned around, and he raised his hands up to make dua, and he said, "Oh Allah, destroy these elite of the Quraysh. Oh Allah, destroy these elite of the Quraysh. Oh Allah, destroy these elite of the Quraysh." And when he said that, Abu Jahl's face, it's like he'd seen a ghost, because they knew that this man is authentic, he's real, and he's you know, a true prophet of God, though they didn't want to accept that. So when he's talking to Allah, making this dua, they became very scared. And so Abu Jahl himself, he told his comrade, "Listen, we've said enough now. I think we should stop this, you know, and let him do what he wants to do." So the Prophet ﷺ, he reacted at the third circuit, not the first or second. And the reason is because in the first and second, they were insulting him on a personal level. The third, they were insulting Allah. Okay, so as a believer, he was showing that, look, if people go at you on a personal level, the highest form of response is not to respond. Not to, you know, get down to that level of other people, get into a mudslinging match and cussing match. That's not really what a believer should do. You should rise up. But if somebody was to insult your religion, insult Allah, insult the Prophet, insult Islam, then you really don't have a choice but to react. And the way you react should be in a manner that shuts down this person. And lets them know that I'm here to defend Allah, I'm here to defend the Prophet, and you can't be saying stuff like that. Okay, because when it came to yourself, you got a choice. You know, it's my honor, I can decide. And if I think that it's best not to respond, that's the best thing, and the Prophet used to do that. But when it comes to my religion and Allah, I'm going to be a defender. So online, you can take that principle as well. Like somebody does, you know, troll you and say bad things about you on a personal level, the best thing is just to ignore them. Most probably, you know, you responding is just going to give them more fuel, and they want that reaction. And you know, one of the Muslims, he said that before I was Muslim, one of the things I noticed about the Prophet is that the more somebody would try to anger him, the more calm and collected he would become. So it's the opposite of what most people are like. The more you try to provoke them, the more angry they get. And the Prophet was like, no, the more you try and anger me, the more calm I'm going to get.
And you, at the beginning of this episode, you spoke a little bit about discipline. And so just on that, you know, subhanAllah, how does our 5 daily prayers keep us disciplined?
The 5 daily prayers, I mean, it's like an exercise in discipline, isn't it? You got to take time out, you got to go to a particular place in a particular mindset, in wudu, and then you perform these prayers. And if you're praying behind an imam in the masjid or in congregation, you're basically like, you know, in an army, and then you have the general, and you know, you're taking the orders, you're following, you got to do it in unison, all the rest of it. So it's important. Salah is an amazing way to nurture yourself to become a more disciplined person, and a person who has a routine in their life, and everything else that comes with Salah. I think we need to talk about that maybe on a separate occasion, inshallah.
Inshallah, we definitely will. So again, going back to anger now. So say for example, we know the other hadith of about, you know, when you're standing, you should sit down. If you're sitting, you should lie. So why should we change our position, for example, when we're getting angry or in that situation?
I mean, on a psychological level, it's interesting because, you know, when you think of a confrontation, you often think of two people facing up with one another. You know, like when before a fight that's about to take place, people, they square up and they look at each other. That's the most provocative type of way of, you know, interacting with someone. So if you're in a situation where you're talking to someone and you're face to face, if you were to sit down, it does actually cut the confrontation posture, okay? And then what happens is that there's a moment of pause, obviously, in changing as well. And then when you're lying down, your body is in a position where you're more relaxed as well. So it's like a practical way of trying to bring down your anger, you know, by just changing your posture, and also the way you're, you know, where you're coming across in your body language does affect that person's perception of you and your mindset as well.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for viewing today. I'm sure we all took some benefits from that amazing episode. So inshallah we'll catch you next time on Refining Character. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.